All right. Okay, I hope everybody can hear me okay. A little bit later again today. If you are watching this, let me know so I don't feel like I'm talking to myself. You can just type in watching live or say hello or whatever. If you're watching this on a replay, then also let me know so I know that you guys are actually watching it and you're getting some value out of it. That's the most important thing to me. Got my mate here. Little Betty to help. I think I'm going to put a poll next week that you can ask me to talk about my cats if you want. I might get some good responses. Okay, questions today. My laptop isn't actually working, so I don't know why I'm looking at that. The first question, if I remember rightly, was from, hey Matt, how are you, mate, in the UK? Smashing it as well last week. Well done, mate. First question was from Will. I like Will's questions. He's always got good questions. Can I get a six-pack at 41? And it is a very good question. Here we go. Now he's going to start meowing. I might have to lock him away. One sec. Yeah. This is actually becoming part of the act now, chucking my cat out of the room. Okay, Will asked, can you have a six-pack at 41? My initial answer to that is, do you want a six-pack? Okay, now I know that seems like a peculiar question to ask back, but physiologically, yes, you can. Was that maybe the cat is laughing at the question? Yeah, maybe. It just seems to be every week he's laughing. Physiologically, Will, you can have a six-pack at 41. A six-pack is essentially when you have no body fat around the abdomen region. You know, you have abdominal muscles underneath there. It's covered by body fat. All right, so the way you would get a six-pack is through decreasing the body fat. The way that you do that is ensuring you're in a calorie deficit through eating well and exercising, combination of the two or more of one than the other, but you're creating that calorie deficit, you're dropping body fat. As soon as you drop enough body fat, six-pack will be there. The reason I asked is if you want one is because it does get harder as you get older because there's processes that are happening. So without going into too much detail, things like your metabolism will start to slow down. Now, don't use that as this kind of excuse, I can't do it anymore because my metabolism slowed down. It might slow down by 50, 100 calories as you kind of go through, you get older. There's other factors in your life that change, but to get a six-pack, there's actually a lot of sacrifice that goes towards it. So, for example, I'm going to use you as an example because you asked the question. I'm sure you won't mind at all. You know, you like going out for a drink at the weekend. You know, you like going out and watching the mighty Aston Villa and socialising. You like to go out and eat and all these different things. Now, there's one thing if you still want to enjoy those kind of delights and delicacies in life, and you still want to be able to do that and have drinks every weekend and do all of that, then the only thing that you could do is increase your training volume. Now, you've got a full-time job. You're probably not going to be able to train enough, and it's probably going to be too much strain on your body that you actually can't do enough training to get, you can't out-train that kind of bad diet or that lifestyle. So then you need to understand that if you actually want to get a six-pack and that is your primary goal, then you might need to make sacrifices in your life. You might need to spend a little bit more time doing some exercise. You might need to cut out some things that you enjoy in the week, maybe snacks, types of foods that you like that aren't helping you to kind of create that calorie deficit. You might need to cut out the booze, or you might need to go, where you're only kind of drinking once a month, or, you're drinking certain drinks, you're drinking, vodka, lime and soda rather than beer. Managing your calories. I would say the biggest one is managing your calories through MyFitnessPal and understanding how you get in a calorie deficit. You can get that. Is it easy to get? No, it's not. And I think most of it comes down to actually making that sacrifice. Now, if it's something you really want to do, then obviously I'm your man now. I can help you to do that. I can give you exactly what you need to do. But there isn't if the point that you're getting at is there specific exercise that you can be doing, or specific food should be in. No, it's not. It's all the same thing that I preach all the way along, and any kind of trainer, any guy in my position will be preaching to you, eating better, exercising more, exercising consistently. That's going to get you there. So that's my honest advice on that one, mate. You can get a six-pack. It's whether you want a six-pack, okay? Because you can definitely get one. But if you're here to enjoy life, and who's to say that someone with a six-pack is happier than you without a six-pack? I don't want to go into that, because it's about what you want. And I know your counter argument would be, what about the guys who have got six-packs and, they go out every weekend and, do this and do that? Well, they're probably making a sacrifice somewhere. Maybe they're getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning and training twice a day, or maybe even to another extent, maybe they're taking some performance-enhancing drugs, or I don't know. There could be other reasons to it, but the basics of it are, as I've just said, okay? That leads me on to the next question from Luca. How can I get back into training 4 times a week? Now, this is a good question, and this is something that I've struggled with as well. Stepping away from working in a gym when I'm just surrounded by everybody being motivated and all the time, and almost being in a position where, as the head coach of the gym I was in, I'm expected to work out. It was easy for me. I would be there anyway. 30 minutes or an hour, I would get the time to do it. When I stepped away from there, I've got my training partner, Bonnie, and we often train there. I've gone through this process of, obviously, you guys understand that I've set on my own thing now. So a lot of my time goes into, developing systems and working alongside and coaching you guys. So there's been quite a few times where I've managed to make excuses for myself. And that was the whole reason for me in January putting myself back in the success sheet, because I saw a lot of value in that, in terms of holding myself accountable to you guys to training. Now, at the moment, I'm probably just I've got that standby switch on. I'm not really smashing training. I'm not doing anything exceptional, but I'm getting 3 or 4 sessions in a week. Last week I didn't, because I had guests over and it was just a little bit hard to fit in. But I guess the question is, you need to Luca's actually a coach as well. And I think it goes back to, there's a few different ways that you can get yourself back into habit. If you're someone who's got to a position where you're just not doing it and you're not feeling motivated to go and do it, then you need to find what's going to motivate you. So if there's some extrinsic motivation that you need to add in by going and hiring a coach, there might be a small investment that you need to make. Obviously, you guys have got me for that. Or you go in and you go and find a new gym, that's going to motivate you. You find a new group of colleagues to work out with. You find something that's going to motivate you. That small investment could be the key to getting you back in the game. The other thing is setting yourself a goal. Find something that you really want to do. It has to really mean something to you, because just signing up for something mindlessly because, that might be a good idea, you'll probably be in the same position. So find something that you really want to do and build a plan and build your support structure around you. So, I say this a lot, I know that I'm very extrinsically motivated. So I like people to rely on me, hence why I have Bonnie as a training partner. Yeah, me and Bonnie aren't necessarily doing the same training at the moment, because I've got some injuries that I'm working around. She's got some injuries. But just the fact that I go to meet someone in the gym and we set a time and we go there and we have a chat and we do we do our training. If I text Bonnie in the morning, it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. If I text her and say, hey, listen, Bonnie, I can't make it today because of this, then I've essentially let her down, because then she's going to be feeling a little bit demotivated to go and train because she's by herself and she's used to having me there, that type of stuff. So definitely recommend setting yourself up with a training partner. And even better, set yourself up with like a small group, because there's always times when there'll be someone who, if there's just 2 of you in the group and, one of you's feeling a little bit demotivated, the other one, hasn't got time to do it or hasn't got time to train, then before you know it, there could be the sessions are gone and they're kind of non-existent. So get yourself a group of 3, 4 people. There's a few of you guys who are in the Lifestyle Reset who've got your own separate WhatsApp groups, which I'm involved in as well. I don't necessarily actively talk in there. But there's a great one from the UK with Ian, Daisy, Sarah, Jenny, Mark, those guys. And it's constant just motivating each other. Even when one of them's having a bad day, there's one person there to pick them up and to go through it. And it's absolutely amazing. And listen, on a bigger scale, I don't think it would work, because you need to know the people in your group. You know, it'd be easy for me to just set up a massive group. You need to know people in the group that you can go through. 1 second. Okay, you need to know people that are in the group because that's going to be part of holding you accountable as well. So I hope that answers that question, Luca. I'm in the same boat, mate, so feel free to reach out to myself and Bonnie and maybe we can help. Okay, I did a little poll. Let me see if I can load this up finally. The last time I looked, it looked like it was going to be talking about strength training, but it's actually high intensity interval training. I'm sorry it's so dark as well. I'm actually going to turn the light on. Just me getting up and down today. So I'm going to roll with high intensity interval training. Very, very popular these days, and for a good reason. The main benefit of high intensity interval training doesn't take a huge amount of time. In the lifestyle that we lead, we don't have a lot of time to dedicate to doing, you know, hours and hours of exercise. So high intensity interval training, we can burn the most calories in the shortest amount of time. We could do a 20-minute we could do a 10-minute workout, 20-minute workout, anything up to an hour that's interval training. Now, if you're not sure what high intensity interval training is, let me just give you a brief description. It's essentially taking your heart rate up into maybe the red zone or a high intensity where you're feeling out of breath, you know, you're really working hard, and then you set a set amount of time where you're recovering. So you let your heart rate come back down. So let's give you an example. You might go to the track or find somewhere to run. You run for 400 meters and then you rest for a minute. Then you do that again, rest for a minute, and you keep doing that. That's essentially high intensity interval training. But there's loads of other ways of doing it. Now, very popular on YouTube and things like that. You could log onto YouTube. You could find thousands of high intensity interval workouts on there, and they might do 30 seconds of mountain climbers, you know, 30 seconds rest, you know, all these different things. I think you understand the idea of high intensity interval training. So it's great because it doesn't require a huge amount of time. It doesn't require a huge amount of equipment because you can literally do it with any exercise. In fact, it's more beneficial to do it with exercises where you don't need equipment because there's less likely to injure yourself. Because bodyweight exercises, there's no external forces. It's going to be easy for you to get high intensity doing it. A little bit more science towards why high intensity interval training is good. Remember, overall calories is the most important, especially when weight loss is your goal. So the type of training that you're doing doesn't necessarily matter as long as you're doing the calories. But when you do high intensity interval training, we have this thing called EPOC after. So that's excess post-oxygen consumption. So very, very briefly, that's the idea that if you do these interval training sets, you start to deplete your glycogen stores, which is your stored carbohydrates, which you wouldn't get if you were to just go on a treadmill and run for 40 minutes because you wouldn't get your heart rate high enough to deplete those glycogen stores. So from that, what we actually get is this afterburn effect. Now, you might have read this, you might have heard of this. It's a true thing. So you go and work out in the morning, you an interval session, you go to work, you will continue to burn calories for the next 6-7 hours where your body's trying to replenish, doing its own processes, trying to replenish that glycogen in the muscle. Okay? You don't necessarily get that if you just do one steady run, because guess what? You don't need to replenish those stores anymore. All right. So you might only continue to burn calories for maybe 2 to 3 hours after a morning session if you've kept your heart rate just in kind of that fat burning zone. So I hope that makes sense. That's just a very brief way of explaining it. If you're hitting those high intensities, you're much more likely to get that afterburn effect where you're burning calories. So essentially, you could be sat at work after your morning session, your body's working very hard to replenish those glycogen stores. That in itself is burning calories through the day. That's kind of like your non-exercise activity that you might have heard a lot about. Where else can we go with this one? High intensity interval training. Now you'll find that high intensity interval training is built into a lot of the popular classes these days. CrossFit, we used to do tons of it, still do. F45, circuit classes, you know, Les Mills, body pump. These are all classes where you're set amount of period where you're working really hard and your heart rate's going high and you feel like your heart's about to beat out of your chest, into periods where you have a rest, where you go and get a drink in between, or more specific, where you have 20 seconds rest in between. So these are already built into these classes, which is great. If you're not doing classes and you're going and doing it yourself, hey, why not start your session off with some high intensity interval training? Pick 2 or 3 exercises. Mix it up, constantly varied, keeps it a little bit more exciting for you rather than just doing the same things over and over again. Introduce that, and then you can kind of move your session into more steady state cardio towards the end. Potential downsides of high intensity interval training, just from the outside looking in, if I was gonna give some kind of cons to it, these YouTube videos and stuff are great. Just be careful of the impact that it has on your joints. If you're always doing things where you're jumping up and down, you're always doing burpees, you're always doing squat jumps and these types of things, just think of the impact that's having on your joints. But particularly if you are someone who is carrying a little bit of extra weight, that pain on your joint it's not gonna be beneficial for you. So you need to be careful of the exercises you're choosing. My last point on high intensity interval training, and this is probably the biggest takeaway for you, particularly if you're someone who's training very, very consistently, 4 or 5 times a week, you're starting to monitor your food, you're getting better with that, but you're still not seeing any change in your weight or in your image, then it could be a potential that you're overtraining with doing too much high intensity interval training or too many classes. And if you're doing 4, 5, 6 classes a week, there's a huge demand on your body doing high intensity interval training. Your body needs time to recover from doing that. So rather than doing 5 high intensity interval sessions, why don't you do 3 where you're really going to go for it, you're going to put 100% in, you know that you're getting a lot out of that session, and then just add in a couple of sessions where you're doing either some strength training, depending on where you're at the moment, or you're going out and you're just going for a long walk. Because that recovery process is often the key, we find, in that kind of weight loss aspect of it. Because if you're constantly doing the high intensity stuff, then you need to continuously fuel your body, and you might find that you get to a position where you're just eating because you're so hungry. Whereas if you weren't doing so many high intensity interval sessions, you wouldn't be as hungry, and then you'd find it easier to manage your calories. And we know that managing your calories is the key to your weight loss and fat loss. So I hope that's beneficial for all of you. I hope I've answered some questions. That's a fairly long one today, so I'm going to leave you to it. Betty's getting bored as well. We'll do the same again next week. If you do have any questions in the meantime, feel free to throw them across onto Facebook or send them to me privately, and I will get them answered. All right, thanks very much, guys.